Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me in this panel. I'm really excited to be part of this conversation. And yeah, thanks, Brennan, and also Lillian, Molly, and everybody else at Mission Society for having me. It's such an honor. So my name is Shuran Huang, and I'm currently a photojournalist based in Washington, D.C. And most of my work covers politics, immigration, human interest rights, and I would say all the interactions in between. And I was born in mainland China, and I grew up internationally thanks to my parents' job. And in 2016, I moved to the US, to Syracuse, where I went to school with Lillian, which is Syracuse University. And I studied photojournalism for my master's degree. And after graduation, I internet, the New York Times, National Public Radio in Washington, D.C. That also actually helped me eventually relocate to Washington, D.C. from New York. And in the past 3 years, since 2021, I have been freelancing in Washington, D.C., and I've been covering a lot of major political events, including the abortion rights, Roe v. Wade overturn, and also 2020 presidential election. And I'm actually going to cover the 2024, the upcoming election again. So I would say a lot of my work really is surrounding the political topic, but I would say my approach is very much documentary style with a lot of intimate moments. So yeah, this is my kind of long bio, but if you have other questions about my backgrounds, please feel free to ask. And oh, by the way, I speak 6 languages. And I found out that like in journalism field, it's really important to speak many languages. Especially I actually learned Spanish for work, because I really cares about the immigrant topics in the US. So yep, here I am. And thanks for having me.
Thank you. Brendan, why don't you just roll with your introduction now?
Hard act to follow. Wish I went first. I'm just kidding. Sharon, that is an amazing story. 6 languages. I speak one and hardly speak one. What's up, guys? Everybody, guys, ladies, legends. I'm Brennon Dixson. Thanks for having me. I am on the West Coast. I'm opposite of Sharon. I am born and raised in Fresno, California, the Central Valley, the breadbasket of the country. And then I moved up to the Bay for high school. I went to San Jose State for a little bit to stay home and be around fam. Was not a fan of it. Went to community college at San Jose City College, where I've known my whole life of wanting to do journalism. Since I was a little boy, I would wake up and watch the Weather Channel because I wanted to be a weatherman. I was telling Molly about this on the phone. Like, seriously, I was about this life. I would be up at 6 in the morning. I would watch dish TV weather channels in Korean, in Japanese, in Kansas, literally just dissecting it anywhere. And my grandma would take me in elementary school and I would give her the weather report. Because in my little head, I thought everybody wanted to know about traffic and weather. And that was what I was going to serve them. Why is there construction on my street? I'm going to find out for you. I don't know how I'm going to find out. I'm a little kid, but in my head, like, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to like give my community news. I think, as I told Molly, Fresno is it's a very hot city. It rains a lot. It gets cold. It's a weird mix. And we had a weatherman named Kopi Soteropoulos, who was just a celebrity around town. When you got employee student of the month, he would take you out to pizza. And yeah, he had his own car. He had his face on the car. Everything about this man was just awesome. Cool stash, everything. And yeah, I just wanted to be like him, and it morphed to wanting to be on ESPN over the years. Again, had no idea how to get into the field. I was Googling, people that looked like me on ESPN or people that I enjoyed. And I tend to find that they were columnists at prestigious papers. And so I thought that's how that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go try to be a columnist somewhere and write my opinion and stuff. I ended up transferring to Long Beach State after San Jose. I'll speak a lot more about my community college experience. I've been very lucky every step of the way. I know Lillian from Long Beach State. Syracuse is top of the line prestige, baby. Like, that's it. I wasn't a serious student. I, working multiple jobs. I've worked since I was 16. I'm getting like Facebook memories from me applying at Gap and Old Navy. I've been on the grind to get where I am. And yeah, I achieved my dream of working at the LA Times. They reached out to me last year, before the age of 30, a goal I set before I was 5, not before I was 5, before I was 10, a young kid. And I was covering Black LA for the Los Angeles Times, it's crazy. Couldn't have scripted it better. I wrote my first story for the paper, and it was a centerpiece. So real quick, I'll wrap it up. I don't tend to cover, broad immigration and politics like Shuran. She's doing important work out in Washington. I am writing about local news. Like, that is my niche all the way. It started with, I got lucky and selected through a USA Today internship. I'll speak more on that later too. There's questions for it. And I got to stay here in Long Beach at the paper here. They own 11 papers in SoCal. If it's not the LA Times, it's that group. And I worked my butt off as an intern, and I've just stayed in their good graces. And I left for my first job, got hired back in the group, and just literally climbed the ladder, and was at the Times last year. So yeah, we'll get more into it. That's my very long-winded bio.
That's awesome. No, it's so great to hear about both of your backgrounds. Also, one of my first questions was getting more in depth about how you found yourselves in these roles. So super awesome to hear about that and sort of the different approaches. And so I'm going to just skip right over to my next question, which is, what does your day-to-day look like? What does your day-to-day work look like for both of you?
Shuran, please, ladies first.
My day usually starts around like 4:35 a.m. Mainly because I do a lot of day-to-day coverage on Congress, which is on Capitol Hill, and also the White House for the New York Times. And a lot of times before the news kicked in, newspapers like the New York Times will love to see a really nice feature of the Capitol Hill building or Supreme Court or the White House. So I would say the best light of the day, it's either sunrise or sunset. So by the time it's sunset, it's going to be too late. So every one of us, including I would say all other photographers, get up really early in the morning to wanted to catch the sunrise of the day. So the sunrise these days happens around like 6:30. So I usually like just get over 5 and catch up on emails, schedule all the emails out to send out at 9 a.m. And then I'm out the door by like 5:36. And then during the day, I spend a lot of time these days on Congress. Even it's out of sessions, but before the election, but there's other stories going on, profile of certain politicians and Congress members that I'm working on. So I'm running around on Congress a lot during the day and covering different hearings, running into different offices to try to catch Congress members. So a lot of times newspapers like the New York Times, they wanted to get photos of specific members because they may have make certain remarks about certain issues, especially ahead of the before the election. So it's really honestly very hard to find these Congress members that we are looking for on a day-to-day basis because they are in and out of Congress very often. So it's actually a lot of waiting time on Congress as we are trying to catch these members. So I honestly spend a lot of time waiting, but when the Congress members like walk by in the Capitol building, we just have to be really quick and ready and trying to catch the 30 seconds of time and make sure that we get like a good solid at least good solid, but I try to be creative photos of Congress members. And when we are brainstorming that frame of those Congress members, I also wanted to make sure the photo speaks to the topic of, like, it speaks to the story. So it's honestly a lot going on in that 30 seconds. It's a pretty intense, stressful job. And it's interesting. I feel like a lot of people think that photographer's job is very easy. You walk in and take a few photos. And unfortunately, I feel like to give more backgrounds, you know, photographers can't just make a phone call with the participants or collaborators and ask questions for the story. We have to be on site. So as a woman photographer, I actually run into different safety situation as well. And you know, sometimes I'm on Congress and across the street is the Supreme Court. Let's say when the Roe v. Wade overturn happened, I spent a week outside of the Supreme Court covering the protests going on, the ongoing protests about the overturning of the Roe v. Wade case. And so there was two parts, right? It's a pro-choice group and also pro-life groups. And oftentimes they clashes. And then during this kind of breaking news moments, I have to cover it. And it's like 2 minutes later, I have to sit down and file the photos to my editors, like on site. So I would say a lot of the most important quality about being a photographer, photojournalist, is really we have to be really good at anticipating moments, and not just the craft of how good we are as a photographer, but also be really flexible about what if something doesn't happen like we expected, but the situation happens that, you know, we didn't expect it. So we have to be ready for any like spontaneous like kind of change. So going back to the day-to-day, so like it's spent a lot of times on Congress and also White House. So my days usually ends around 5 or 6 because the Congress is out of sessions around 4 or 5. And then after that, I may have to sit down in the Senate gallery and office to file all the photos that I shot of the day, and catch up with my editor and make sure everything's okay. And at nights, even when I get home, I still kind of is working, and I'm like, because I'm a freelancer, so I get a lot of inquiries from other publications. So I have to keep an eye out on my emails. I would say that as a freelancer, we don't really stop working, and I'm really bad at work-life balance. I work on weekends as well. A lot of things these days happens on the weekends. And so I would say anytime people ask me like how many hours I spend working each week, I honestly don't know. It's a lot of hours. Each day is at least 12 hours. And you know, like our job as a journalist is also a communication job. Like we have to be so good at communicate. We communicate with the reporters that we're working on a story. We communicate with editors we work on stories, and also we have to make sure that the designer understands how I want the photos to be like lay out on the page and like on digital version. So it's a lot of communication in the same team that I feel like being good at teamwork is very important, and also good at communication, so important for our job as journalists. So yeah, I don't know if I answered questions, and I felt like I just talk like an essay long.
You crushed that.
No, it's great to hear. I think it's great to hear about the realities of, you know, the time that you put into the job, and, you know, how you're responding to deadlines in the moment, which is something I definitely want to talk about. I think it's like very inherent in the career of journalism. So all of that I think is really helpful to know. It's good background for what is required from, you know, this type of work. But before we jump into deadlines, Brennan, if you want to share a little bit about your day-to-day from the writing perspective.
Yeah, no, I think I encourage all of my peeps at Metro DPHS in the corner right here. When you guys get your phone, Google Shuran's pictures and you will see exactly what she's talking about. Like you're when you take a picture yourself, and I don't get me wrong, I got some photo skills. You know, I can get down on the iPhone, I could take some pictures. But when you get a good photojournalist who has an eye and like who thinks like the way Shuran is thinking, it adds so much to the story, and it really blows your mind on how they can capture literally just a portrait of a congressman like rushing out of the office, but like the way they're rushing or just everything about it, it adds to the story so much. And I'm a writer through and through. Like I want to be a broadcaster, but I'm a writer. You know, I'm not a picture taker, but man, is that what people pay attention to for the stories? We'll get there. There's a question about my favorite story, and the photojournalist made my story, the centerpiece that I mentioned earlier. I want to echo a few things. All reporters are bad about work-life balance. We care way too much. You do not do this if you do not love news, if you do not love informing people, if you do not love holding power accountable. There's so many aspects of journalism we get into. Like, it's not even writing. If you audience engagement, you want to deliver the marketing, sales. There's so much that goes into journalism, because it's not the news that they're selling, it's the ads that they're selling to you, and the news is what attracts you in. The business, it's crazy. Let's see. Oh, people communication. People hit you at all random times. You think you started your day at 8 in the morning and it's 9 p.m. and you're trying to watch Game of Thrones. Nah, the mayor is texting you because he's got a story that he wants out, or like it's just a politician playing politics, and you're a journalist, so you should always be available. And you wonder, like, should I answer this call? And you're gonna answer the call because you don't want to miss the story. Like, look, man, I'm gonna break the news to my people. So yeah, adapting is another key thing that Shuran pointed out. So again, local news guy. I'm going to focus not on the Times day to day. I'm going to focus on like climbing up the ladder day to day, working at smaller papers. Santa Clarita Signal was my first job out of my internship. Small paper, small town, in north of LA on the Grapevine. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar, but very tiny town, very Republican and red. It's also Democrats there, but it's just like a very hotly contested area in SoCal that you would not think. And so I'm gonna focus on my day to day there. I was writing 3 to 4 stories a day for this paper, and that sounds crazy coming out of college where I'm a procrastinator. I was doing my essays in the middle of the night. You know, Lillian knows, man. I'm a procrastinator through and through. But just getting that job, can I do 3 stories a day? And then you get to in the flow of it, and man, you have no idea what you can do. So I covered education and City Hall a lot. So my day is very opposite of Shuran. It's so funny. She's photo, I'm writing. She's starting at the crack of dawn. No, I'm waking up, not waking. I'm starting my workday at 1 noon because I have City Hall and school boards meetings that start at 7:30 and will run till 1 in the morning sometimes. And in Santa Clarita, there were 6 school districts. So sometimes I would, on Tuesday, Thursdays, I would go to the elementary school meeting from 6 to 7:30. Hey guys, just to show face, because that's an important part of the job, is showing up and being there. Like Shuran said, I can make a call and get some info from people, but it's showing face that establishes that connection, that lets people know you're serious. Like that's a key that I've always stuck with, is be polite, show up, and just tell the truth. Like whatever you see, I'm reporting. I may have an idea of what the story is going in, but I don't know what the story is until I show up and I ask somebody who's involved, until I talk to that teacher, until I talk to that parent who's mad at the school board meeting. I've had extremely bad luck. I don't have my laptop. If I did, we would go on the school board agenda for one of these high schools, and I would find us a couple stories right now just to show you like what it looks like. It's nothing. 4 stories, it sounds like a lot, but I go to that school board meeting and they're recognizing some students who did some amazing work on the basketball team. That's a story. There's those kids have an interesting story. Somebody wants to read about them. There's a Teacher of the Year award. Oh, tell me, teacher, what have you done? I threw out the first pitch for the Dodgers recently. I went up to the stratosphere with NASA recently. They did that in Santa Clarita. I got to go to the stratosphere with them. Cool things like that. You never know where you're going to find a story, especially until you talk to somebody. You ask them, what brings you out here? Just communicating. When I was in college, in high school, I hate talking on the phone. I do not want to answer the phone. I don't want to cold call and randomly call people. I did a story about a crazy story about a cop. I had to call this cop. Don't know him. Had to find his number online through the courts, and I had to ask him about this intense situation that it was just wild. And no, he didn't want to talk to me. My heart's pounding, but that's part of the job. You got to do it. And now it's nothing to call people. You guys can drop a number now. We will call on the Zoom and we'll get some questions out of them. It's just, that, as I said, it's growing into the job. But so beyond, that's the husky I warned you guys about, opinionated. She runs the house. She knows what's up. She has a lot of info about journalism she wants to share herself. But most of the time, beyond city council, let's say I'm going to an event for a couple hours. They named the street after Eazy-E here in Compton. They did a little ceremony for it. It wasn't little. I thought it would be a little ceremony because of the way these events typically go. You don't know what to expect. Sometimes they're put on really well and giant and really well organized. Other times it's a couple moms in the community who did it because they're upset that their kids don't have a teacher. And they're just really speaking outside on the sidewalk. And, it's not a big organized event. That does not mean that story is not important, because that story was really good. But as I said, you don't know what you're getting until you talk to people. And so I went to that event with Eazy-E or whatever the elementary school event is. And the moment I leave, I am rushing back to the house, the office, McDonald's, my car, and writing up the story. And sometimes you got an hour, sometimes you got 4, sometimes if God is on your side, you get an extra day, which is wild. Like having a day to write a story, man, I can tell you some things. But most time it was an hour or two. I'd get out of city council and I'd have to be writing in city council. And the way it sounds terrifying. I know you're sitting in that class like, bro, there's no way I'm writing 3 to 4 stories. There is. Like the moment your brain gets it down, like the same way Shuran's like, I got 30 seconds and she's thinking a million miles a minute about the composition, about the lighting, about the frame. I'm thinking the same way about your quotes. Like you're hitting me with something and then your buddy comes up and he touches on a similar something. I'm like, oh, that kind of flows together. That's that. I'm in the iPhone notes. My thumbs hurt because I'm typing on the phone so much. And guess what? I'm going to have arthritis happily when I'm old, because that means I was working and telling stories. So yeah, it's a lot of adapting. You do not know what you're going to get. One of the questions later coming up, spoiler alert, is what's your favorite story? I cannot answer that. I wanted to go with the Goodyear blimp because this is journalism right here. So I'm an intern. I don't know news. I don't know how to file a story. I've never written a story outside of college where I had multiple days and, a teacher helping you. And like, I'm truly early in my internship here in Long Beach. I wake up at 7 and I get a call telling me to go to the Long Beach airport. I live right next to the Long Beach airport. Cool, Frank. Why am I going to Long Beach airport? The Goodyear blimp is going to land there. And it's not a blimp. It's a helicopter, by the way. It's not technically a blimp, but they're gonna land and do a tour. They're gonna show off this new Goodyear blimp. Cool. I get to the airport. I'm told I'm going on the Goodyear blimp. I'm terrified of heights. I don't know if I want to go on the Goodyear blimp. That is my greatest fear, is heights. And I'm thinking, well, I got to get this story. Like, no, they sent me out here. I'm going on this blimp. I rode the Goodyear blimp, which not a lot of people do. You cannot buy, like you have to buy an auction or find, it's very hard to do. I got to ride the Goodyear blimp. It was the coolest thing in my life. As I said, I've been in the stratosphere with NASA, bumped the stratosphere with NASA, the Goodyear blimp. If I become a billionaire, I'm buying the Goodyear blimp. And it was amazing. And I'm like kind of flipping out to like the workers. Like, I talk a lot, as you guys can see and tell. And I'm talking to the worker. I'm telling her I'm afraid of heights. I didn't know I was going up there. Do I have to go up there? And I went up there. I got to do, again, wanting to be a broadcaster. TV news was there. They allowed me to do like a TV shoot pretend on the Goodyear blimp. It's a plane, it's a bird. No, it's the Goodyear blimp. That's what I said. And I was so unconfident. But I should have been more confident. And who knows where at, maybe TV would have hired me. And that's part of the job too, is confidence and adapting and going with it. So yeah, I rode the Goodyear blimp, went back, wrote a simple story about the Goodyear blimp. Like, it was nothing spectacular. It didn't really have like my perspective on the blimp. I interviewed the pilot, and yeah, but that's how stories come together. Is you wake up at 7 a.m, you get told to go somewhere, and the stories are, man, I got stories for days. And I encourage all of you guys, please, if you have any questions that we do not touch on, reach out. I will gladly answer anything and everything. I want all of us to succeed. I cannot stress that enough. I'm gonna shut up now.
No, that's awesome. I feel like you guys have both hit on in both of your stories a lot of necessary skills. So, adaptability, I think like it sounds like communication, being able to talk to people in order to conceive of the stories, trying to stay genuine and honest to the stories that you're covering. And there's a high level of commitment, it sounds like, in the job. You're doing a lot of things that are changing at the last minute. And I'm sure you're also getting a lot of stories at the last minute. And so I think all of those are really invaluable things for anybody who's interested in this line of work to be hearing about. And so just diving into that a little bit more, we have a question on here about deadlines and meeting deadlines as the news changes. And I think that could expand to just, interacting with your work that is constantly changing. You're getting these things in last minute and having to respond to them. What kinds of skills or learning do you feel like help you engage with that part of your work?
It is Shuran. Please.
I really enjoy listening to you talk, and Brennan, like just to let you guys know, I haven't even met Brennan in person, but I can tell he's such an outstanding journalist because he's so passionate.
I love this.
A lot of us do journalism mostly because of passion. We're not trying to be rich. We are passionate people, okay? And I think that I'm very a passionate photographer as well. And Brennan just point out something that's very important. I think is an important skill to have beyond all that we have discussed just now, is networking. So Brennan mentioned that when you go to City Hall, you have to show your face, right? Same thing with me on Congress and White House. All of these White House congressional staff, they don't know who we are. But more that we show our face, the more that we have conversations with them, they get to know us better. They will gradually like us. And a lot of times, like, this is how I make my network, and this is how I network on Congress. And even I don't know any of these people, but they really have seen me enough. Like, a lot of times I just go knock on certain congressional members' door, oftentimes on a daily basis, because I really want to get access into their office space. They're not really, most of the congressional members are very reluctant to show their office or like personal engagement with their staff to the public. But for us, as photojournalists, if we can get something exclusively visually, that's actually really valuable to our client. For me, it's mostly the Washington Post and New York Times, Time Magazine, and because they wanted to show something that is like other readers cannot see. So from day-to-day basis, I feel like all our photographers is like really trying hard to network on Congress and try to get that exclusive access to, some like maybe personal space of congressional members. So I would say, like, if you're in school now and you're gonna get in the job market, networking is very important. Same thing applies to me when I talk to my editors, and I make sure that I offer more information to my editor, more work to my editor that they ask for, and make an impression, and they will come back to hire me more. So I would say that in school, start practicing networking with your classmates, and also be friendly with your classmates. Nowadays I'm collaborating a lot actually I have classmates I went to Syracuse with now works at New York Times, Washington Post, and sometimes we work on the same story together. It doesn't matter they're a reporter, designer, or they're editor. And so I would say making that strong network and like connections in school, starting from school, is very important. Because you never know how the table is going to turn later on, and you never know how, like, if you guys going to work on the same story together. And yeah, relationships, that's important. And Brennan just also mentioned that a lot of times, you know, he mentioned as soon as he finished like covering the story, right, you have to go back to write a report. And a lot of times we can't eat on time. Like, for example, sometimes these days I only eat one meal a day.
My whole life. What is lunch?
In the morning, I have 1 cup of coffee, and then my next meal is going to be 6 p.m. So sometimes, like, that's why I say that our job is a passion job. Cheers. A lot of times it's a passion job. It's like we don't really get to eat regularly or rest regularly, but we love our job. That's why we are willing to sacrifice what's actually essential for ourselves. And though, like, I'm not like advocating that it's good to not have work-life balance. It's always good, and I'm still working on it. I feel like, especially for freelance journalists, we constantly struggle with this battle. It's like whether I should go work now or eat now, you know? So deadline. So on day-to-day basis, honestly, especially in newspaper, because they're trying to get all the work in print by 6 p.m. So a lot of editorial decision, like for example, a story that they initially as 11 a.m. meetings, they try to put on maybe A1, the New York Times A1. And later on, because other breaking news happened, and then they will move that A1 story to, like, let's say the next session. So like a lot of times as I'm working, I have to constantly adapt to these changes, editorial changes. Let's say sometimes I thought like I would just be filing these photos in 3 hours. And my editors was like, actually, this story has moved to A1 now. So can you please file some important photos from this event, let's say this hearing, in the next 10 minutes. And just like Brennan said, like sometimes I also wonder how I'm gonna like cut down 1,000 photos in 5 minutes, but I have to do it. I just have to do it. It's just this like be really willing and good at multitasking, adapting to changes is important. But yeah, I've talked enough. And Brennan, you can go.
Shuran, you do cut down those pictures though, do you not? Do you always get the job done?
Yes, we always get, like, deadlines is deadline. We cannot ever miss. And I'm really honestly thankful. I don't know if Lillian can relate to what I'm about to say, that like the program in Syracuse really trained me well to meet deadlines. And I know that in school, if anytime I miss a deadline, I will be failing that class. I'm not gonna, our professors were actually really strict about deadlines, and they know that in photojournalism, it's very stressful. It's like meeting deadlines is everything.
Piggybacking on the deadlines, and then I'll go into the skills just because this touches on it. That I think that's what got me noticed, at least for that Chip Squin scholarship, which is you apply to that coming out of college. You just put your resume in, and it's to get diversity in the newsroom. And they pass around your resume to papers all around the country. So you could be in Louisville at the Courier, you could be in Houston at the Chronicle, you could be in New York at the Times. Like we had people from all over, and if you're selected, they fly you out to Nashville for a week of training. And again, being very, very lucky, when I got to San Jose City College, knowing I wanted to do journalism, I did a journalism 101 class. That was the only experience I had besides my decade of watching ESPN as a assistant reporter. Just kidding. But I had no experience to say all that. And I went to go write for the school newspaper, knowing I was going to transfer in a year. And the whole staff had recently graduated and moved on to San Jose State. So it was me and 6 others. 4 of them spoke Spanish as a second language. So I would literally tell them like, yo, just go to the event, give me 2 sentences on what happened and a quote, and I'll pepper that baby up, get some pictures in there. I knew nothing that I was doing but I had total control. and just being so hungry for it. There were times where I would be, because we did a paper once a week, once every other week. We got pizza. If we finished on time, I never got pizza because we never finished on time, because it was just me putting that thing together. And I didn't know how to do the paper, but I learned because I had to do it all. And that I never missed deadline. Like, it would be midnight on a Thursday or a Friday, and I missed the bus and would walk home 4 miles because I had to get that paper done. I got it done, and boy, did I feel good having got it done. It's an amazing feeling, like having that control. And then the experience was crazy. But my advisor wrote the most amazing cover letter, because she said most students will create excuses. Most students won't show up. Brennon is there. Brennon is speaking at the student government meeting, trying to get us funding for a trip. He is, in the newsroom doing the papers. He's doing it all. And I forgot about all that. Like, in the day-to-day grind of working at Old Navy and working in the tutoring center, and then trying to get classes and, keep the grades up to transfer out. Like, I forgot all that I did. I was just doing it just to do it. And I still look back on that. And like, when I need some inspiration, when I'm thinking about, like, I don't know if I can keep going, like, nah, dude, you can keep going. You're working for this. So I feel like showing up is a very important skill. Networking is a very important skill, because if I did not have that teacher, that instructor write that cover letter, I would in no way be talking to you guys today, because I would not be in the field. I had no way, shape, or form on where I was going. So I got really lucky. That networking landed me an internship. And from there, I just ran. I just needed my foot in the door. I always felt like that. And we're running with it. So networking, very, very important. We'll get back to that. Another skill, managing stress. Shuran mentioned it, like, she's drinking a cup of coffee every morning. That is my breakfast. A cup of coffee from Cassidy's here in Long Beach. Best coffee ever. You got to find a good coffee spot if you're going to be a journalist. I was commuting an hour or two up to Santa Clarita, and from Long Beach, I would do my job. I would get coffee immediately, do my job, and then drive back home. And crazy commute, but it's what I wanted to do. And it was very stressful then, but comparatively to like being at the Times, man, the stress of this job is crazy, because you cannot be wrong. It is your entire livelihood to find out what is the truth, and you don't know who's telling you the truth. Like, everybody's got an agenda or a slant, or and it's just a viewpoint where it may be true, but is it true? Do you know everything? So you got to talk to multiple people. And then the worst parts is when I would turn in a story and you're stressed about your editor not liking it, you're stressed about it not being good enough. I'm not one to be super confident in my writing, never have been, even though people tell me it's good. I just don't think I'm a good writer. Like, I'm just giving you what I see from my perspective. But the stress of your editor shooting it down, and then it gets through, and then that night before, dude, is that story going to be well received by the audience? Did I misquote somebody? No, I didn't, because I went through the recording 8 times to type one single sentence. But what have I misheard? What have I mistyped? There's so many things, and thankfully, never had an issue. Like, everything came out great always. And that's building that trust. That's a skill, is building that trust. Another thing I take with me is, as I said, I am always polite. I worked in Pasadena, covered a lot of Rose parades, in the Rose Bowl. I talked to Bill Walton. I'm just trying to throw out the cool stuff for you guys. I'm not bragging at all. I'm just trying to throw out the cool stuff to get you hyped about journalism. Talk to NFL players like Warren Moon, Orlando Pace. I'm a huge Ram fan. I got to meet Orlando Pace. I got to tell Warren Moon, you're my dad's favorite player. He shook my hand and was like, what's your dad's name? It's amazing that people remember me. And these people are just regular people, and they appreciate somebody who's polite and just real. And that is something I give everybody all the time, is if I'm interviewing you as a source and I can relate to you somehow, I'm going to try to relate to you. You guys are in class, my man's head down. I know he's tired as heck. He's over this. I'm going to try to find a connection with him, like, or her, them. anybody. Like, yo, I remember being in class tired. I remember thinking like, why are we doing these Zooms? We didn't have Zooms. I'm old. Why are we talking to people? But it's just like about showing up, being polite. I got back to the Rose Parade. I got to interview LeVar Burton, like reading Rainbow, freaking, he was the Grand Marshal. And again, I'm always at the Rose Parade events because I'm the city hall, like I'm the reporter in Pasadena for the main paper. But when it's the Rose Parade, TV's coming, ABC, CNN, especially LeVar Burton. Oh, everybody's there. And the pandemic canceled the Rose Parade for the first time in like 110 years. So this is an even bigger deal at the time. And, you know, they're getting all pushy. And I got to go write this story. Like, I'm going to finish this ceremony where they announce the Grand Marshal. We don't know who it is because Molly, if I'm talking too much, speed me up. Just letting you know. And I'm there. I'm getting pushed out, but I'm like, you know what? Go ahead and ask the question, my man. Go ahead. Because at the end of the day, is that PIO really going to be like, you were so nice and you let everybody go, you get no questions? No, I'm just the last person. So that means I get as much time, maybe not as much time as I want, but I can stretch that bad boy. They said I got 2 questions. I'm going to turn it into 4. I'm going to try to squeeze it into 5. I'm going to take the time to get your info afterwards, his wife's info, and we're going to schedule talking at 4 a.m. on the day of the Rose Parade. And boy, did I trek my butt 2 miles across the Rose Parade route to go talk to her at 4 a.m. She didn't think I'd show up. It was not a very friendly meeting, but hey, that's the job. You got to show up. You got to talk to people. And that's a skill. Another skill, social media. You do not have to be a reporter or work for a paper to be a journalist. In my mind, a journalist is somebody who shares information, reliable, accurate information. And we have the power of social media to do that at any time nowadays. You TikToker, I'm not in TikTok, but man, you can reach the world with anything. And there are stories everywhere. As I said, like I wish I could just go up and pull up the agenda and find some stories for you guys. You guys got a homie who's doing music. You got a friend who is like a 4.0 track star. Tell their story. Just get your phone. You can do it all from your phone. You can write, you can record, you can take pictures, you can put it on social media. And I put everything I had on social media. I would, the same way we're talking now, I would just set up my phone just like this and just hold it to somebody's face and just ask them questions. And then I would just thread it on social media. And somebody called it a master class of threads. And so, no, like I'm just putting it out there because I have it. Why not? And that's how people find you. And then they come to know, hey, I can go to that Brennon. I can go to Shuran. You need a picture of a politician? Oh, my girl Shuran has got you. And that's that networking. That's that I wanted to start with this. My mom told me constantly, it is not what you know, it is who you know. And boy, does that ring true in journalism, because you need to know who to call. When I'm at the Times and I'm covering Black LA, a totally different beat from Pasadena and Santa Clarita and education. What is Black LA? There's a lot of cities here in LA, if you don't know that. There's Compton, there's Watts, there's Long Beach. Yeah, Black people are everywhere. So what does that look like? I don't know, but I'm going to call some people in the community who do know and who can tell me what that looks like and who can tell me who to talk to and where to go. Just give me some idea. As I said, like, they have you got to recognize they have their own mottos, but that's another skill, is deciphering what's news, what's not. One final thing, the deadlines. So I was doing a tour, this is very timely, of the new Clipper Stadium. It was very cool. Loved it. Big sports guy. They sent me out there because, you know, I'm a young guy, and that's the benefit of being young in journalism, is they send you out to go do this cool stuff. I was doing a tour of the Clippers' new dome. They just opened it. The owner had just walked out to do a speech at the press conference, and I got a text from a source that John Kennedy, RIP, the longest running Black councilman in Pasadena, had died. And I didn't think they were being serious. I thought they were like pulling my leg. I was like, are you serious? Died? I immediately called my editors and told them, hey, like, this is a good story. We got some good pictures. I'm not going to be able to stay for the students got another class. No
Oh, Brennan, I think you muted accidentally.
I did. I read that the kids got another class. No worries. Please, if you guys want to reach out, please do. I guarantee Mission Society will get our info to you.
Yeah, and we'll be sending this as well. So we have a few questions that came through the chat and we can run through them.
Please.
Yeah, we can do like a lightning round. I know that both of you also probably have stories and things that you're covering this afternoon that you have to get to. So we'll answer them, and this is all being recorded and it will get to our students after we have it all, you know, set up and everything. So but yeah, and also students will get your information if they have any individual questions. Thank you for coming.
Truly, thank you guys. I hope you guys have a good day. Can't
Can't
wait to read your stories one day.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
any
you.
of them end up having any questions too, we'll make sure there's a channel to get them to you so you can answer any further questions. But since we have 10 minutes and we're recording, maybe we can run through these like a little bit lightning round style, and get a little bit more information just on this recording that students can then have and watch at another time. So one of them is, can you walk us through the process of how a story gets chosen and then published?
I'll lead since it's a story. That's talking to the community. That is figuring out what they kind of coming into the job, talking to people on the bus. I took public transportation a lot. Hey, do you read the press telegram? I saw a lady with press telegram. I remember it clear as day when I'm an intern, and I asked her, "What are some things you would like to read? What are some things that are happening in Long Beach that we don't necessarily cover?" It's just talking to the community. It's going to those meetings at City Hall, and you'll kind of get a feel for what's a story. A new In-N-Out opening. People love a new In-N-Out opening, and it's so easy to write up. Like that takes 10 minutes, and then you got a story for the day. That's one story. And then city council is approving a giant hotel project. That's 2 stories. And then I met a woman who's crying in the middle of City Hall because her son got shot. That's 3 stories. That's the long-term one. Let's go talk to the fam and let's talk about gun violence. Like, that's truly how a story came through. News is everywhere nowadays, so like there is no shortage of what to cover. It's more so deciphering what's worthy of your time of covering. And Shuran can speak to that, I'm sure, because she's freelancing and working 12 hours a day and having to decipher what is and what isn't worth it. Hit us.
Yeah, I feel like honestly, I would say that this would be a better question for my photo editor to answer it. They are mostly handle the side of how certain photos would be chosen and get published. But I can speak to my role as a day-to-day photojournalist is I usually get there. Let's say if I go to the hearings, I will get a general scene of how the hearing looks like, and if specific members speak to certain issues and they have really dramatic emotion to show or facial expressions, I would definitely get like close-up shots of them and any engagements that is like visually interesting to certain story on Congress. And I would say, like, when I file the photos, let's say I photographed 1,000 photos, I would probably cut down to 15 to 20 and send it to my editor. And my editor eventually would choose 1 to 2 that speaks the most to the story, because they are the one that actually read what the reporter writes. And then they would choose the photo that speaks to the report. It kind of complements the words in the story. Does that make sense? And then they also the photo editor also handles like communicating with other teams, the editorial teams, in terms of where the stories is gonna go. It's gonna be an A1, or it's gonna be like the metro session or business. Like it depends on really like how the story is being written, and also alongside the photos being used. Does it make sense? So yeah, so I would say like a lot of times people don't pay attention to role the photo editors, but their jobs are very important. And I feel like they are like the liaison communicating our photos and our work as photojournalists and also with the editorial team. And let's say
Mhm.
the executive editor who decides, oh, if this is a good headlines, good stories to put on A1. So yeah.
It's like an ecosystem. We're like, I would never necessarily work with Shuran day to day, but she could be on my story for that day. And as a reporter, it's up to me to, like, especially at every job I've been, hey, this is what we're trying to shoot. Like, this is the main guy right here. We definitely want a picture of them. This is, an important part right here. I mentioned this in the story, this ceremony where they're carrying the cross into the church. Let's get a photo of that. Yeah, no, photos are so important, and it's just communicating, with the news. Sharon said photo editors. I think the copy desk, the people who edit and make sure that there's no typos or the verb tenses, things that I would never think of because again, I'm not a great writer. Those people are the heroes of newsrooms, and you have no idea who who the copy desk, who's on your copy desk. Like even at the Times, like it's a very low prestige job. So important. Go ahead, Sharon.
I also feel like photo editors are such like unsung hero. They are really the one that connect me to reporters like Brennon. So like they assign me to work with reporters like Brennon, and then we can work together on the story and make sure the story go well together. So I would say that also during this kind of collaborating process, having a list of favorite, I guess, like reporters we like to work with and make sure we have good relationship with the reporters is also very important, because like the reporters may be able to provide me very important information about the story or certain like collaborator or subjects that I'm not even familiar with. So reporters are usually the one that actually tell me all the context and backgrounds of the story, because we don't usually go together to the story together at the same time. So the reporters, so usually when I work, before I go to assignments, I would ask the reporter if a story draft is available. I would read the story draft first before I go to the assignment. So I'll make sure that I know what's being actually discussed in the story, what's being written in the story, how I can incorporate those words that the reporter has written in my photos when I'm actually photographing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and it's cool to hear about all the other different types of jobs you can have in journalism. I think that's definitely something to look into, the ones that are maybe a little bit more behind the scenes or folks don't know about them. Just as evident from bylines or things like that. So I think that's really cool to hear about as well.
Sorry, one last thing. Brennan just mentioned copy editor. Copy editors is very important. They not only edit like stories that like Brennan written, but also edits my captions, like the caption story,
Everything.
photos, everything. They are actually the one that really make sure everything that we write, because sometimes when you're in a rush on deadlines, we make mistakes in typing. They are the one that actually fact check everything and make sure that like all the words are being written in the story, no matter is the story itself or the captions along like with my photos, I correct. So they are important jobs as well in the newsroom.
Awesome.
And they're not at every paper. I worked at the smaller papers I worked at. I'm the photographer. We have a photographer, but if he can't make it out to my story, especially me covering city council late at night, I would have to find a way to just take a picture on my phone or it's pretty.
With the shifting like journalism landscape right now, and the business is really kind of going downhill a little bit. It doesn't matter local newspaper or major newspaper. Like I think New York Times is the only major newspaper in the US in these recent 2 years haven't been doing major layoff. From National Geographic to Washington Post to Time Magazine, I know that they all have done major layoffs. And a lot of times, unfortunately, they actually lay off the copyrights team first. The copy editors teams first. So, and like a lot of newspapers and publications now, they also don't have staff photographers on site with the in the company. So I also realizing like cultivating and having multimedia skills these days, no matter I'm a photographer or like Brennan reporter, is very important. So I also have to make sure that not only good at photographing, but also good at writing, even I don't really like writing, but I still I can kind of have to like train myself to kind of like pretty well-rounded in terms of multimedia skills.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, awesome, you guys. We are just about 2 minutes from our original end time. I want to just give you an opportunity right here at the very end, super rapid fire, like favorite thing you love about your job, you know, the thing that you are the most passionate and excited about every day. And we'll end with just both of you sharing that. And yeah, I think it would be cool to hear your just the thing that you love the most about this work.
I'll jump in. A chance to learn and experience everything. I grew up in Fresno. I wanted to travel the world. I've never left the country. I left the state for the first time to go to Hawaii last year. But still, I've done things that nobody else has done. I've covered Coachella. I've been on stage at Coachella. I've done Dodger Stadium All-Star Game. I watched Ohtani hit home runs. Like, it was me playing wiffle ball, and the home run was like a foot in front of me because even then I couldn't hit a wiffle ball that far. I've been a stratosphere NASA. I did Goodyear Blimp. Like, I've told important community stories about people who should be highlighted way more than some celebrity, you know, but they aren't, because news, it's evolving is the term I like to use. And my favorite part is that because it's evolving, and because there's flux, is it could be changed, and you could be the person to change that. I could be the person to change that. We are all affecting the change as consumers and producers. And it's terrifying to be in the field, especially amongst so much change. I was going to touch on, like, every paper I've been at has had layoffs, and I was the young guy who avoided that. And there are people who are trying to change that, so that way when I'm 45 and you guys are coming up through the game, it's not the same, and we don't know what that looks like. If you have that idea on what that looks like, you're going to be a billionaire because you're going to solve the news crisis. But yeah, there's just so much potential to do jobs, so much potential to learn and meet people and just experience things you never thought you would. There are people who are in Gaza experiencing war right now. There are people, you know, at the Olympics talking about just normal everyday things. Snoop hanging out with people's moms. Like, that's low-key journalism. And yes, it's flashy and it's a celebrity, but it's information. It brings people in, and there's different ways to do that. And I'm very excited to see where the field goes.
For me, there's three things. The first thing is really because I cover Congress and White House from day-to-day basis, so everything gets really repetitive. This job really pushes me, encourages me to stay curious on a daily basis. How I can make the exactly same thing look so different every day. Curious as a journalist is very important, I would say. Not only just it pushes me in a certain like story that pushes me to stay curious, but also just like stay curious in general. And secondhand, like the second story, like the second thing that I really enjoyed about it is just how much firsthand humanity I'm touching on. Like, it's like today I can be photographing Biden, and tomorrow I can photograph the victim of Gaza that is affected by Biden's policy. So I would say, like, our job really makes us interact with people from all walks of life, and ultimately it really humbles me. I feel like I grew up as the only child of the family. I was really spoiled. I feel like this job as a photojournalist really helps me to see things happening in the world from different perspectives, and really humbles me. So I would say that, like, yeah, this is like the two things that really keeps me going. And yeah, I'm just really passionate about humanity, and wanted to, like what Brennan said, make a change with my job.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much. That it's so great to end on that note. And
It is.
incredible to hear from both of you and to feel your passion for telling stories and learning about people and the things that are happening in the world. And I know that it will mean a lot to our students to hear it. And yeah, we'll be sure to connect you so that if any other questions come up, they will get to you. And so grateful you're willing to chat with them and also chat with us today. Thank you guys so much again. And good luck with I know the election is happening and there's so much stuff going on. So good luck with all of that over the next couple of weeks. And yeah, we'll keep in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, Shuran. I will be following on Twitter.
I'll be in touch.
Yes, for sure.
Let's chat. All right, bye guys. Thanks so much.